Alright guys, I found a problem in Sea of Thieves. I've only been playing it for a little while, but I can't find anything about how to be smart about naval combat in the game. So I did a little bit of research, and I think I've got some basic ideas to get going. So I went on Wikipedia and just read a couple pages on old school naval combat from the 1600s and found like a couple basic principles that seem to hold up pretty well in Sea of Thieves. Now, there's a lot of differences, like in real sailing boats, you can't just sail straight up against the wind, and in Sea of Thieves, everything's happening in a bit of a microcosm. Like in proper sailing combat, these interactions would last over several days, of people sort of chasing each other, seeking an optimum position. And that's what I want to get into. So it's pretty basic. We got weather gauge, leeward gauge. All right, it's the position of you to somebody else, considering which way the wind's going. So if you're coming from the headwinds, the wind's on your side, you've got weather gauge. You can control the interaction and when you want to go and attack the opponent. If you're in leeward gauge, the wind is one that would help you escape. It's going to blow you away from the other person. So they both have their pros and cons. And like I said, the old sea battles, they'd last over several days. So people would battle for an optimum position for a long time. Because literally, if you're in leeward gauge, there's no way you could attack the opponent. It just couldn't happen because you can't sail against the wind. So those drawn out parts of this don't really apply to Sea of Thieves, but it can be very useful, and there are some important things, some important reasons why you might want to come from a weather gauge position. This is all pretty specific to the galley and the brig, a lot more than the sloop, because the sloop can do all sorts of interesting maneuvers. Okay, so you see in this diagram here, there's a little chance of our galley making a meaningful attack. The brig has control over the situation. Now where this makes a real difference is in a situation like this, where you've got two ships side by side, face on. One's in weather position, one's in leeward. Because, now this is interesting, I've been trying to work out if this applies in Sea of Thieves for like 2 days now. And whenever I'm on a boat, I jump on the back center of the boat and look at the mast down, like straight down the line. And I'm hoping that like when the wind blows, if it's coming across from the port side, coming across blowing that way, I feel like the mast should be leaning a little bit to the right because it's getting pushed over by the wind. And that's exactly what happens in real life in sailing boats. The winds will push it over a little bit and there'll be a slight tilt. So you can see in this picture here, I've tried to draw that down. Now, in the Sea of Thieves game, every time there's a crosswind, I stand on the back of the boat and the boat's rocking back and forth in the waves. I don't think the waves are influenced by the winds in the game, but there's a tendency for the mast to conform to physics. It seems to lean more readily to the side that the wind's blowing. See, I don't know if it's intentional in the game, and I need more people to check it and confirm it for me. I might have confirmation bias, but whenever I go and stand on the back of the sails, it's always there. It's always the case. So I'm going to put forward the idea that the wind affects the sails in a way that affects the angle of the ship through the mast, as it does in real life. Now, in Sea of Thieves, you might notice that the cannon is not very good at aiming downwards. Aiming at the beneath the bow of the ship, getting those low shots that sink it at a close distance especially, very hard to do. However, if you're in a weather gauge position, you're more likely to make those shots. Now, this strategy was employed by the British and Spanish navies. their galleons would always try to approach from a weather gauge position so they could sink the French people they were trying to sink. The the French, on the other hand, had some mandate from the government that they were supposed to flee and carry out the mission and not get caught up in battles. So the French actually engaged from a leeward gauge because they'd get a better, longer shot with their chains. So they could cripple a ship from a greater distance from a leeward position and then scoot with the wind at their heels. Um, However, in Sea of Thieves, that's not really too big of an issue because your cannon can aim freaking vertical. So, that's where I'm at, you know? I think that maintaining a positive weather gauge position would have ramifications for getting broadside shots that'll sink other ships because it will enable you just a little bit, a smidgen. The majority of the time, you might have an extra 5 or 10 degrees, pointing your ship down just to get that extra little bit of juice. And yeah, that's all I got. I've only been at this for about a week. I've been playing the game for like a month or two, and I've been thinking about naval strategy intensely for a couple of days. So if you guys have any ideas, I'd like to hear them. Especially people that have been playing the Sea of Thieves game for like a long time, because I think it's been out for years, and I've only been playing it for a couple of weeks. And there might actually be some resources that I haven't found because I haven't looked that hard. I just got a hunch. I was like, oh man, I haven't seen any, but I reckon this will work. And so far, it seems to hold up. So yeah, let me know what you think. And I really hope I don't have to re-record this audio. It was the first take. And I'm just going to take a moment to reflect on the fact that I didn't fuck anything up.